What's up everyone? Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to use Premiere Pro, the first stages, getting set up and know how to find your controls. It's pretty confusing in the beginning. It's not so easy to understand, but after I start to show you the controls, you'll have a better understanding. So let's get started. So we're going to get that started. So the first thing you're going to be greeted with on the screen, it's going to take a little time to load up. It's going to load all the controls and all the presets and stuff like that. So it takes a little time to start up. It's pretty straightforward. Right now, I'm going to set mine up. There's untitled, so we're going to name this tutorial. And then on the second line, we're going to go to, you see, location. This is where you can physically browse where you want it to save to. So I got mine saved to my Google Drive. Here's general. Here's the type of engine you want to use. I'm using GPU acceleration metal. Preview cache, I don't have that set to none. Display format is time code, because that's basically time code, the same thing you're using when you use your video camera to record. Display format, audio samples, and high definition. DV is what I use for my capture format. They have DV and HDV, so I use HDV. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK because I already named the tutorial. And now we're opened up with these with this 4 set of windows here. So you have 4 different windows. This one is your source window. This one is your program window. This one is your timeline window. And this is basically your files window, where you have all your media and all your projects in this window right here. So what we have to do now to get started is basically import some data, import some video clips into the video to get started. But we're not going over that today. That's going to be in a different tutorial. Right now, I just want to get you guys familiar with the controls of Premiere Pro. So we're going to take our time and we're going to go through all these controls, and I'm going to basically show you guys where it is and how do you use these controls. The first step here I'm going to go over is the top timeline. Well, the top control menu, where all your controls are, where you can physically change windows, edit your stuff, and edit sequences and stuff like that. So we're going to start here. Premiere Pro CC. This is the first one. You got preferences. This is where you can change all your controls here. You have general, appearance, audio, audio hardware, autosave, capture, collaboration, control services, device control, graphics, labels, media, media cache, and memory playback, sync settings, timeline, and trim. These are just your basic controls inside Premiere Pro, your system preferences basically. Then you have your sync settings, where you could sync settings now if you want to save it and go on another computer, and you have a certain settings that you set up and you want to use that on a different device. You can go there and do that. You have use settings from a different account, so if you want to import settings from another account, you can also do that. And you can manage your sync settings from here as well. Now, keyboard shortcuts is something that I believe that you guys should get familiar with as you get used to the software, because here it makes your life a lot easier once you start using certain shortcuts. These are the shortcuts that's pretty much set in here. So if you look here, you have maximize, select camera 1, select camera 2, ripple trim. All these controls is basically preset for you already. You can go ahead and learn these controls, or you could, if you don't feel comfortable, if you're coming from a different editing software, you can change these controls to something that you prefer or what you like better. So this is where you go ahead and change your shortcuts. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that for now. Go back here. Okay, so now we have services, hide Premiere Pro, hide others, and quit. That's your basic controls right there. So here we have the file menu. New project. This is if you want to open a new project, team project, sequence, shared project, legacy title, Photoshop title, bars and tone, black video, captions, color matte, HD bars, universal counting leader, and transparent video. These are just some of the controls you can do when you want to do you can import into a project from here, or start a new project, I should say. Here you would open a recent project, open team project, open recent project, convert Premiere Pro clip project, close, close project, close all projects, save, save as, save a copy, save all, capture, Adobe Dynamic Link, import. All these controls are available right now. Import recent, export, that's where you would create a movie. Get properties, project settings, and project manager. Now, some of these aren't highlighted, and the reason why that is because I don't have anything imported in here. But I highly suggest that you take your time, you play with all these different controls in here, because it's like a million things you could do in here. And in order to get good with this software, you really have to get to know the software itself. So I highly advise that you come in, play around, just play with controls so that you can get a good feel of it and how to use it. Here's your edit if you want to cut, copy, and paste. Also, your shortcuts are also here on the right hand side. If you want to clear something, select all, consolidate duplicates, team projects, and start dictation. Now we move over to clip. Nothing is highlighted for clip because, as you can see, we don't have any clips or sequences inside the timeline, so there's going to be nothing for us to see at this given time and moment. Also, your markers are clear, your graphics, add fonts, whatever. Window is basically what effect controls you want highlighted. So in the window, you have your workspaces. You can select the workspace. It also shows you the shortcuts for the workspaces. You can reset layouts and so forth. Audio clips, history, your lumetri color correction. It's just an abundance of controls in this software. So that's why I highly recommend you play around, get to know the basic controls first, because once you start editing, things can get confusing really fast and you can get lost. So that's that. And the help section is great if you're confused about something and you need to understand something. Let's say if I want to know how to import a file, you see it highlight import, and it'll also show you down here where it is and how you do it. It'll give you a direct point out to find certain controls. So it's always good to use the help section if you're having trouble on trying to figure out where controls are or where a particular item is that you're looking for. So that's the basic setup of your main control menu. You always can go here for any given time, any given moment, if something is giving you a hard time. Most of your controls are right there. So if something is missing, you can highlight it back in here and it'll come right back. So now I'm going to go over basically the 4 windows which you'll be working in most of the time in Premiere Pro. There's this top menu home bar here is a couple of things. Like if you wanted to learn, I'll click that. It'll change the format to a learning, and on the left hand side, it'll teach you step by step on how to do certain things and give you a basic rundown on how to use it. Now, I highly recommend that you play with this, especially if you're new, because it'll give you a basic understanding of the basic controls in the software. Now, if you go to assembly is like if you're gonna start to build the project. So it gives you a big import media section so you can import and gather your files, gather your information, put everything that you want to put into your project in this big window so it's not small and squinged up before you start to edit. So that's what the assembly tab is technically about. So you can assemble your files and your data and all your stuff in the import media section before you get started. Third, we have the editing tab. Now the editing tab is where we live. This is where we do most of our work. This is where we're going to edit video, cut video, import back and forth and so forth right here in this section. Now, this is your source monitor. When you import a media from your computer, and let's see if I could find a sample file to import somewhere. We could probably just find something here. So basically, I won't import that. Let me redo it again. So right click, import. So we could just import this image right here. So I'll import this image. And now, as you can see, the image has now went into my project file. So now when I click on that image, it gives me a preview of the image up here. Now, if I wanted to scrub this image, scrub the timeline, if I wanted it to run for a few seconds, if I want to make it longer, I could always loop it. So right here is your source monitor. This is where you can see what's going on. And also in your source monitor, you have other controls. So let's say I had effects that I wanted to add to this. It says this is your effects control. Now, this is the audio. If it was a video, you would have audio in this section. And you have the metadata about, what's in the file itself. It tells you that it's 29 frames per second, still image. The label is pink. Tells you the info on the video and stuff like that. So this is what your source monitor is all about. You have to get cozy here because also in your source monitor, this is where you're gonna make your in points and your out points to cut your video and put it into your timeline. So that's what that's all about. So I'm gonna give you guys, now down here is basically, this is your project folder where you can import all your media, all your stuff. You could turn it into a file. You could add a new bin. You could make it single, smaller. You could unclick that, make it big pictures. You could add other stuff in a new bin. You could delete, as you can see. You can make a new item, sequence or whatever. So there's a lot of controls here. That's what I'm saying. I highly recommend that you get used to these controls before you actually start editing. Because once you start editing, you'll get confused and you don't know where anything is. So now I'm going to show you that we have libraries here, info, your effects. Right here is where all your effects controls can be found. You could find presets here. You could find all kind of stuff to drop onto your sequence or in your video as you go along. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back here to my project tutorial and I'm going to drag this over to my timeline. So now as you can see, even if I press the space bar and I start to play, as you can see, the video is starting to play, even though it's a still image. So there's really no stopping you from doing whatever you want to do. So right now I have this image and now as you can see, it's in my program monitor. My program monitor is basically my preview of my videos or my editing of what I'm importing into my timeline. So as I start to add more footage into my timeline, it can all be viewed up here in my program monitor. So now remember I told you guys that you have your effects controls and stuff like that over here. So I'm gonna highlight this clip. And once I highlight this clip, I'm gonna go to my effects controls, right? So I'm gonna find a preset. I'm just gonna get something very simple, bevel edges. We're just gonna grab that. We're just gonna drag it right over our image. That's it. Boom. Now, as you can see, it in my source monitor, I'm seeing the effect that took place by me dropping that effect on top of my image. So as you can see in the four corners, I have that little bezel going around the edge here from dropping an effect onto my image. Now, this is what Premiere Pro is basically based on. It's layers of stuff. Now, you can drag and drop as many effects as you want onto an image or onto a video, and it works just fine. Now that I drop this effect on this image, now I'm going to show you where you can change the controls of this effect in the image. So now I dropped that effect there. Now if you go to effect controls in your source monitor, now you see a different set of controls. So now you see bevel edges. So now if I wanted to make, let's say, make the thickness thicker, I just drag it. Well, I went too far, but see, I could make it thicker or I could make it thinner. Right? I could make it 0. I can change the degree angle. You could change the color if you want. So if I wanted to change it to red, I could change it to red. So now you see the bevel is highlighted red. When I started to use Premiere Pro, I didn't understand any of this stuff because it was so confusing. But after a while, after using the software, I realized how easy it was because I knew where the effects and where the controls were. So that's the hardest part in learning the software, is to know how to use your effects and how to use your controls. So that's how to use effects, and just keep in mind that every time you add another effect, another item will be added. And I'm going to show you right now because we're going to keep this window open, right? And I'm just going to go to mosaics, and I'm just going to go here and I'm just going to drop this mosaic again right over here. So as you can see, it added the mosaic effect. So now if I wanted to change these effects, I would have to change it, and you see it being changed in your source monitor, in your program monitor, I should say. So whatever you add onto your image, you look in your effect controls, which is over here, and you can change your effects over here. You could add keyframes over here. Keyframes is something we'll go about later on in future videos. But for now, I just want you guys to understand how to use Premiere Pro, where the controls are, and what you have to do to use it properly. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete this. Delete that, so that's gone. We're going to get back out of our effects controls, so we're going to close these out. Go back to your project tutorial there, and I want to go back over this top bar, and now we go to color. So let's say we wanted to, the color of an image or something wasn't how you liked it, or it didn't look good to you. This is where we would change our color controls. Now your color controls, you have lumetri scopes, you have effect controls. But you have to remember, you can edit your graphics controls in your window. You can add lumetri color, so I could add that. I could add different things, lumetri scopes. So when you highlight an image, so let me drag this image back over here, and now you get a full scope of the image. You could tell if it's the color correction is off. Now it shows you your color code, your color correction tools on your right hand side, which is over here on the right. And this basically gives you an idea of how exposed your image is, if it's out of color balance or stuff like that in that nature. So that's what your color effect is all about. Now we're going to move on here to your regular effects control. Now the regular effects control is basically the same thing, but now instead of your controls being on your left hand side in the bottom, it's on the right hand side in a bigger menu. So the effects control is basically the same thing. You can control your effects from there. If you want to grab something here, drop it into your video, you see it in your program monitor, and you're all set to go. Audio, this is where you can edit audio. You will have, you could tweak your audio, change your audio. If you want to mix your audio, if you have something you want to add in, you could mix it down. Here is where you can edit all your audio effects. We have no audio in here, so it's not going to show anything for audio right now because it's a still image. But we will learn how to learn how to use that in a future video. Graphics controls. Okay, now graphics is where we get a little more fancy. This is where you can add like credits. Coming up next, different effects that you can add, color bars, titles, end credits, stuff like that, of that nature. So you can get tons of these online. You can go to Video Hive. You can go many different places and get custom effects. You can add some After Effects in here as well as presets, and you could use them for future references. So this is a pretty cool section here, is when you want to get creative to end your video and add different effects, different controls, and different stuff like that in the end of your video. Now we move on to your libraries. Libraries is a section that I really don't use much yet. If you have a Creative Cloud account, it'll show all of your collections here in this section. I don't use that, so there's really nothing here. If you do want to save stuff in the Creative Cloud, this is where you'll be able to access all your libraries and all your content right here in the cloud from Adobe themselves. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys learned something. I will see you guys in the next video. Please again consider subscribing. Don't forget to press the bell for the future notifications, and see you guys later. Thank you.